The wind screamed through the San Juan Mountains like it was alive, slashing across the valley with a fury that promised the worst blizzard Colorado territory had seen in years. By mid-afternoon, Larksburg Gulch was already drowning under heavy snow. The wooden buildings groaned, windows rattled, and every chimney spat smoke into a sky dark as dusk. Cole Hart pulled his collar higher as he walked down Main Street, each step sinking deep into fresh powder. At 32, he looked like the kind of man trouble always followed. Tall, broad-shouldered, quiet, with a scar through one eyebrow that made folks whisper more than they waved. People stepped aside when he passed. They always did. That's him. Mrs. Abigail Thornton hissed her friend outside the mercantile, the one from Silver Creek. They say he was there when the bank. Hush, Abigail, Mrs. Finch snapped, though her eyes cut sharply toward Cole. Cole heard every word. He always did. 3 years in Larksburg Gulch, and still the shadow of a crime he hadn't committed followed him like a stray dog. He kept walking. The town hall was packed when he pushed inside. Snow-soaked men stamped their boots. Women clutched shawls tight. And Sheriff Amos Hale stood at the front, his silver-threaded mustache twitching with worry. Bridge at Devil's Canyon washed out 2 days ago, the sheriff said. Supply train stuck. Boarding house kitchen burned last week. If this storm hits the way it's shaping up, a whole lot of folks are going to be trapped with nowhere warm to sleep. Then where do you expect people to go? Edwin Pike demanded from the front row. Polished boots, pressed suit, a smile that never reached his eyes. Cole had seen rattlesnakes with more charm. We open our homes, Sheriff Hale said. Everyone takes in who they can. Cole leaned against the back wall and spotted her before she spotted him. Ellen May Reed. She sat straight as a fence post near the window, hands folded neatly in her lap. At 28, the town labeled her an old maid, though Cole always figured it had more to do with her refusing Edwin Pike than anything else. Her gray dress was worn but clean, her dark hair pulled tight in a bun that didn't hide the strength in her jaw or the steady fire in her eyes. One by one, townfolk volunteered to take families in, the Hartlands, the Millers, Widow Hanson. But when it came to Cole and Ellen, the room felt tense and sharp. What about Hart? Someone asked. Cole shrugged. I'll take delivery. Roof over my head's all I need. You'll freeze to death, Sheriff Hale said. That roof won't hold through what's coming. And Miss Reed, Mrs. Finch added, her teacher's quarters are already half frozen. Ellen stood slowly. I'll manage. I always do. Edwin Pike rose, puffing up like a rooster. Miss Reed, you are welcome in my family's home. Mother says we have plenty of room. That's kind, Ellen said coolly, but I won't impose. The rejection hit Edwin hard. His jaw flexed. Sheriff Hale cleared his throat. There is one option. The old ranger cabin by Black Creek. Strong walls. Good fireplace. Enough room for 2 people if they don't mind sharing. Half the room gasped. Surely you're not suggesting. Mrs. Thornton sputtered. I'm suggesting survival, the sheriff said. Storm doesn't care about propriety. I'll take delivery, Cole repeated. You'll take the cabin, the sheriff snapped. That's final. All eyes turned to Ellen. She lifted her chin. If Mr. Hart has no objection, neither do I. Edwin Pike's face turned red, like someone had slapped him clean across the jaw. Old Pete can stay on the porch for supervision, Sheriff Hale added quickly, just to make everyone feel proper. It was a flimsy solution, but the storm chose that moment to rattle the windows so hard the glass trembled. No one argued after that. Outside, the snow fell thick and steady. Ellen tugged her thin coat tighter. Cole watched her shiver and finally said, Wait here. He went back inside the hall and returned with a heavy wool blanket from emergency supplies. You'll need this. She hesitated, then took it. Thank you. They parted ways to gather what they needed. When Cole saddled his horse a few minutes later, he couldn't shake the strange feeling settling in his gut. A pull, a shift, like fate, had reached down and grabbed hold. The ranger cabin sat a mile from town, tucked between towering pines. Smoke already drifted from the chimney. Someone had prepared it for emergency use. Warm lamplight glowed through frosted windows. Ellen arrived in a borrowed wagon piled high with supplies. She handled the reins with confidence, strength, determination, more than most men Cole had known. "Let me get those," he offered as she struggled with the crate. "I can manage," she said, "but thank you." They worked in silence until old Pete appeared, stamping snow off his boots and settling stubbornly on the porch with a bedroll. Inside, the cabin was small but sturdy. One bed, one table, one fireplace, one privacy curtain strung across a rope. "I'll sleep on the floor," Cole said quickly. "We'll find a fair arrangement," Ellen replied, avoiding his eyes. They ate beans and cornbread while the wind screamed outside. Ellen made coffee strong enough to peel paint. Cole found himself smiling more than he meant to. Later, when she stepped behind the blanket to change, he respectfully turned away, staring hard at the fire. "Mr. Hart," she said softly from behind the curtain, "this storm could last days. We should be practical. What do you suggest?" "We alternate the bed, one night each." He hesitated. She didn't. "It's fair," she said. And somehow it was. That night, as the storm battered the cabin and wolves howled far off in the valley, Cole lay awake on the bed, listening to Ellen's calm breathing from the floor beside the fire. For the first time in years, his chest felt light, peaceful, like something unexpected had entered his life, something he couldn't name yet. But he felt it, and whatever it was just beginning. Cole woke before dawn to the scent of coffee and the sound of someone trying very hard not to make noise. Through the frost on the windows, a thin gray light filtered inside, enough for him to see Ellen standing at the stove, her shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders as she battled the coffee pot like it had personally wronged her. He sat up, boots in hand. "You weren't kidding about that coffee." She startled, nearly spilling the pot. "I didn't mean to wake you." "Storm did," he said, pulling on his boots. The cabin creaked under the weight of fresh snow, and the wind still moaned around the corners like some lonely ghost. "I'll check the horses." By the time he returned half frozen, snow up to his knees, the smell of bacon and biscuits hit him like salvation. Ellen set a plate in front of him with a simple, "Eat." They shared breakfast in warm silence until a sharp knock rattled the door. Sheriff Hale, Reverend Whitfield, and unfortunately, Mrs. Thornton stood on the porch. "Morning," the sheriff said. "Just checking everyone survived the night." "As you can see, we're fine," Ellen answered. Mrs. Thornton swept past him, eyes darting over every inch of the one-room cabin. "Highly irregular," she whispered loud enough for God and every angel to hear. "The storm is what's irregular," the sheriff muttered. But then he turned serious. "Cole, I need you to stay put. Garrett Pass is completely blocked. Men tried crossing yesterday. Didn't make it. You step out there, you'll die." Cole felt the weight of that. Days, maybe weeks. Trapped here with Ellen and half the town sharpening their gossip knives. Reverend Whitfield cleared his throat. "The Lady Society has agreed upon certain guidelines for proper behavior." "Guidelines," Ellen repeated, voice colder than the snow outside. Mrs. Thornton lifted a finger. "Separate meal times. Limit conversation." "Absolutely no." "Abigail," the sheriff snapped. "Enough." Ellen looked like she might throw Mrs. Thornton out into the snow with her bare hands. Instead, she said sweetly, "Thank you for your concern. We'll manage ourselves." The moment they left, the cabin exploded with silence until Cole said, "So, separate eating times?" "Of course," Ellen answered, completely straight-faced. "You eat at 6, I'll eat at 7. And no unnecessary conversation." "Certainly not." They lasted 3 seconds before both of them laughed. Real laughter, the kind that warmed the coldest cabin. The storm kept them trapped, but something shifted between them. Not romance. Not yet, but something steady. Respect, understanding, comfort. They found a rhythm. Cole fixed the shutters, hauled wood, tended the horses. Ellen cooked, cleaned, patched a tear in her dress, and read Emerson aloud by lamplight. That evening, when wolves howled closer than before, Cole stood and grabbed his coat. "I'm checking the stable." "I'm coming with you," Ellen said, already pulling on her boots. No, you're not. Yes, she said firmly. I am. He had learned one thing about Ellen Reed. Arguing was pointless. Outside, snow clung to everything like armor. Tracks circled the cabin. Wolf tracks. Fresh ones. In the stable. The horses shifted nervously. Ellen stood guard, her father's Winchester steady in her hands. There, she whispered. Yellow eyes glimmered from the tree line. One wolf, then three more. The alpha stepped forward, massive and silent. Cole reached slowly for his pistol. Don't shoot unless they charge. Ellen lifted the rifle. A warning, then. She fired into the snow at the wolf's feet. The pack scattered instantly, melting back into trees. Nice shooting, Cole said. I aim for ground, she replied. No reason to kill what fear can chase off. They stayed another hour, watching the woods. The wolves didn't return. When they came back inside, old Pete grunted from the porch. Good thinking, Missy. Scare 'em proper. Inside, Cole finally spoke what he'd been wanting to all night. He dug into his saddlebag and pulled out a small iron key. This opens a tack room at Murphy's livery. If you ever need a place to go, any hour, any reason, you use this. Murphy knows to let you in. Ellen stared at the key like it was something sacred. Why? Because a woman shouldn't have to put up with someone like Edwin Pike, Cole said, or anyone else. Her voice softened. Thank you. Later, as they settled in for the night, Ellen's voice drifted through the dim cabin. Cole, yeah. Thank you for believing I can take care of myself. You proved that already, he said. I just gave you options. It was quiet then. Soft, warm, peaceful. The kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. Around midnight, Ellen shook him gently. Your turn to rest, she whispered. I'll keep watch now. But before he could even sit up, a sound split the night. A distant boom. An echo rolling through the mountains like thunder. Ellen's eyes went wide. Was that? Cole was already on his feet, boots half-laced. That was an avalanche, and it was close. Too close. The echo of the avalanche rolled through the mountains like a warning from the earth itself. Cole and Ellen threw on their coats and rushed outside, the freezing air slamming into them as they looked toward the north ridgeline. A massive white scar cut across the distant slope where tons of snow had broken free. That hit near the North Star mining camp, Cole said. Before they could move, frantic bells clanged from town. 3 short rings and a pause, then 3 more. Emergency signal, Ellen breathed. Someone's hurt. We ride, Cole said. They saddled the horses in record time. Old Pete was already hobbling toward them, shotgun under his arm. Sheriff's got men heading up the East Trail. Pete barked. He needs you, too. Snow blasted their faces as Cole and Ellen galloped toward town. Lanterns swung wildly as men shouted orders, and women hurried supplies into wagons. Sheriff Hale spotted them immediately. Good, he said. Cole, I need you leading a team to the mine. Ellen, I'm coming, she said before he finished. The sheriff paused and nodded. Fine. Doc Morrison needs help with the wounded. You stay close to Hart. They rode straight into the mountains. The closer they climbed, the worse the destruction looked. Trees snapped in half. Drifts piled 20 feet high. The air thick with cold dust. When they reached the collapsed storage shed, Cole's heart dropped. A miner was pinned inside, his leg crushed beneath heavy beams. Then worse. Cases of dynamite lay scattered around him, cracked and sweating. One wrong move could set the whole mountain off again. Name's Frank. The trapped man gasped when Ellen knelt beside him. You shouldn't be here. Hush now, she murmured, her voice steady. We're getting you out. Cole and Sheriff Hale shored up the beams while Ellen crawled inside the narrow space to hold Frank's hand and check his bleeding. Her lantern flickered, illuminating her pale but determined face. Ready, Cole called. They pulled Frank free just as another groan rolled through the wreckage. Get down, Cole shouted. The roof started to collapse. Cole threw himself over Ellen and Frank, shielding them with his body as wood and snow came crashing down. Pain exploded across his shoulder, hot and sharp. Cole, Ellen's voice was frantic beneath him. "Cole, you're bleeding." He gritted his teeth. "Later. Let's move." With shaking arms, they dragged Frank to the waiting men. Cole nearly collapsed when they handed the miner off to the rescue crew. Back at town, the church had been converted into a makeshift hospital. Ellen cleaned wounds, changed bandages, comforted terrified miners, all while glancing over her shoulder every few minutes to check on Cole. By the time she forced him into a chair, he was pale and sweating. "Shirt off," she ordered. He tried to protest. She glared. He obeyed. The gash on his shoulder was deep, ugly, still bleeding. Ellen worked with quick, gentle movements, her hand steady even as her eyes glimmered with worry. "You should have let me take the hit," she whispered. "No," he said. "Not a chance." She paused, cotton in hand. "Why?" "Because losing you," he swallowed. "I couldn't live with that." Before she could reply, the church doors burst open. Edwin Pike stormed in with two strangers. Hard-eyed men Cole had never seen, but men who looked like they lived outside the law. "Sheriff," Edwin shouted, "these men have proof. Hart set that dynamite." The stranger stepped forward, tossing a glove onto the table. A glove with a patch identical to Cole's. Gasps filled the church. "You have gloves like that, don't you, Hart?" Edwin sneered. "Half this town does," Ellen snapped. "Murphy sells them." Edwin smirked. Convenient that Frank Morrison blacked out before he could identify his attacker. Ellen stood so fast her chair scraped across the floor. "He woke up," she said coldly. "And he talked." Edwin froze. "And he said the man who set the charges had red hair," Ellen continued, "and a scar on his left cheek." Every head turned toward Edwin's companions. The red-haired one tried to run. Deputies tackled him before he reached the door. The room erupted in shouts. Sheriff Hale moved fast, positioning himself between Cole and Edwin as he barked orders. Cole said nothing, just watched Ellen as she wrapped his bandage again with hands that shook now, not from fear, but from anger. "You believe me," he whispered. Her eyes softened. "Always." Before they could say more, young Tom Sampson burst into church, panting. "Sheriff, another survivor. He's trapped and there's dynamite everywhere." Sheriff Hale grabbed his rifle. "I need volunteers." Cole stood immediately. "No." Ellen grabbed his good arm. "You're hurt, and they need me." "Then I'm coming too." "Ellen, I have medical training, and I'm not letting you go alone." He stared at her, breathless at the fire in her eyes. "Together," she said. "Together," he agreed. They reached the collapse site fast. The second survivor was pinned deeper, the danger far greater. Snow creaked above them, ready to fall again. They worked fast, too fast. The second collapse came without warning. Cole saw the roof buckle, saw Ellen still inside. He dove, grabbed her around the waist, and threw both of them clear as the mountain came down in a roaring wave of snow and debris. They hit the ground hard. When the world finally stopped moving, Ellen was shaking but alive in his arms. She stared at him, eyes wet. "You idiot," she whispered. "You could have died." He touched her cheek. "So could you." And then, before either could think, she kissed him. Hard, desperate, grateful. It was their first kiss. And it didn't feel like an accident. Hours later, after the survivor was pulled out alive and the danger had passed, Sheriff Hale approached them at the cabin door. "Pike's gang has been captured," he said. "And Cole, you're cleared completely. Documents found in Pike's camp prove your innocence in Silver Creek." Cole exhaled. A weight, 3 years heavy, slid off his shoulders. Ellen stepped closer to him, her hand brushing his. The sheriff smiled. "Town could use folks like you. Together, you two make one hell of a team." When he left, Cole and Ellen stood in the quiet cabin, the fire crackling softly. "Ellen," Cole said, voice rough, "what happened today? What you risked?" She lifted her chin. "I'd do it again." He swallowed. "So would I." Outside, the storm eased. The worst had passed. Inside, something new had begun. Something neither had been looking for, but both had found anyway. Heaven, Cole thought, didn't always come gently. Sometimes it came in the middle of a storm, carrying a woman with steady eyes and a rifle that never shook. A woman who saved him as much as he saved her. A woman who turned one small cabin in the blizzard into paradise.